So hello everyone, welcome to this another video of Scale Up India. I'm Abhishek Verma and you are watching the Hibernate series. Now from today's video onwards, we are going to discuss the next part of this Hibernate series. And here we are going to cover various types of inheritance with the help of Hibernate, or you can say as JP also. Yeah. Now in today's video, we are just going to cover only one type of inheritance. And as you know, the rule of the video, that video may be a little bit long enough because we need to cover each and every concept in detail. So what you can do is that since every week there is only one video related to Hibernate, so you can watch it in pieces. So in the first part, I'll explain the required annotations, the required changes, and in the second part of the video, we are going to execute the code and see how it is going to affect our database and what all options we are going to perform there. So without wasting any time, let's directly get started. But before this, as you can see, the best part for this video is that we have already crossed 1000 subscribers here. Yeah. So here you can see it is 1.01k as shown here. So that's all because of you, that you are subscribing and you are liking the channel. But I would just like to say one more thing, that besides subscribing the channel, please also try to comment in the comment section that which part did you like the most, what did you didn't like, yeah, so that I can try to resolve your queries also there. Also, if required, like many of you say that okay, this needs to be done, that also needs to be done, so I'll try to add all these extra things in the next video or later on in this particular series also. So let's get directly started with this particular part, and we'll go to the deck first. So here we are in our deck, and the deck is just going to be of 4 slides, not big enough as always. Yeah. And here I will just like to provide you the overview, what we are going to cover and how the things are going to look like. Now before moving directly with our first type of inheritance, let me just show you what are the various types of inheritance we can have here. So the number one is single table inheritance, and this is something which we are going to cover today. Then beside this we are having something like joint inheritance, and the third one is table per class inheritance. So these three are the most important kinds of inheritance, or you can say techniques of inheritance, we are having in our JPA as well as Hibernate here. And today, as I mentioned you, we are going to cover single table. Then the next week, the same demo we will enhance with the help of join. And again, the next week we are going to enhance the same demo with the help of table per class. And that's the advantage of watching this particular series, because here you can see each and everything with the help of same demo. Yeah. So that you can decide on your own which inheritance is best for you or which kind of technique is best for you. So now let's move on with the next slide here. And here we are. And again, I need to give you a particular scenario here in Petistaan. So you can see that in front of us, we are having two different owners. One is boy and one is girl, and that's not an issue. Okay. So it can be any owner. So here there is no discrimination. Now the point is that this boy is having this dog here. You need to tell me in the comment section which breed of dog it is. Yeah. So I deliberately took, so you can tell me in the comment section which breed it is. And for this girl, we are having cat, and the cat looks like this. So again, you need to tell me in the comment section what kind of cat is it. So generally, when we are in the cities or in the villages, we don't see these kind of cats around us. Okay. So we will see these kinds of cats only in the jungles or sanctuaries or something like this, not common in the cities. And this will give you an idea that how we are going to perform inheritance in the Petistaan. So what I have done here is that we will say that for us, there is going to be a pet. Now for the pet, you know that generally we go for something like name of the pet, gender of the pet, and gender we took it as enum, male and female, and then the type of the pet, where in our case, the type can be dog, it can be a cat, it can be a fish, it can be a rabbit, or it can be a bird. So these are the 5 different types we are having in our Petistaan application here. Now, beside this, you remember there used to be one more variable in our case, and that variable was date of birth. But since we need to perform inheritance here, so what we have done is that from now onwards, we will say that there are going to be two kinds of categories of pet. One is going to be the domestic pet, something like this, and the other one is going to be the wild pet. Now domestic pet, we will say these are the ones which you can keep at your home. Yeah, and these are available, you can see them in the cities, in the villages, and you can easily keep them with your home. Now since you can keep them at your home, so I will say that you know their date of birth, or maybe that you have adopted it from somewhere and hence you know their exact date of birth. Then the other one is the wild pet. Now you may say that okay, you are using the term pet also, then you are using the term wild also, but the point is that since we need to consider each and every part within this application itself, so hence this kind of changes we are doing here. So wild pets are those which you cannot keep at your home as such, but what you can do is they will stay in the jungle or particular sanctuary and you can adopt them. So you can pay for their food, pay for their living and all these things to the particular sanctuary owners or the jungle owners, and hence for them you just know their place of birth. So this is the kind of discrimination we are doing in terms of pet here. So one is going to be a domestic pet, other one is going to be a wild pet. Now you may say that okay, instead of this you could have went with the help of gender also here. Yeah, but that I deliberately didn't went because we wanted to go for the enums, and same for the type also we are using enum, but this is completely different thing. So it's a domestic and it's a wild. Now another important thing is that for the domestic pet we don't consider the place of birth, and similarly for the wild pet we don't consider or we don't even know the date of birth here. So now let's try to see how this is going to look like in terms of tables. So here we say that this is going to be the very simplest one, and here we are consider it is as one-to-one mapping. So okay, I went to the wrong slide. So this is the owner table, and here you can see ID, first name, last name, gender, city, state, mobile number, email ID. Since it is one-to-one mapping, so here only we are providing the pet ID as pet_ID. We have already covered this in detail in the separate one-to-one mapping video. If you haven't watched, I'll provide the link on somewhere on the top here and you can watch that one in detail. Then here we are having the other one as pet table, which is the known owning table, and for them we are having just an ID, the name, the date of birth, place of birth, gender, and again the type we are having there. Yeah. Now you see that as I mentioned you, some pets are going to be wild pet, some pets are going to be the domestic pet. So here in our case, Tommy was the domestic pet. Hence we don't know its place of birth as such, but we know the date of birth. And for the Muffin, which was the wild cat, we don't know the date of birth, but we know the place of birth, that is Jim Corbett National Park. So it is going to be some jungle or sanctuary or some national park like this particular part only. Yeah. Now here you see the issue with this particular one is that we are going to have too much null values in our table, something like this. So here you see that here we are having null, here we are having null, and that's not a good practice as such. But this is something which we are going to do with the first type of inheritance today, that is single table inheritance. Yeah? Now here the problem is that how we will decide, like, because if I will directly, let's say, try to execute a query on this, so I will get the particular pet from the database. Yeah. So let's say that I say find the pet by the owner ID and I provide the owner ID as 1. So I will get this particular data of the pet also. And then what I will do is I will try to, let's say, get date of birth, get place of birth and something like this. Now I will try to say getter methods for each one of them, because I don't know by default whether it's a wild pet or whether it's something like domestic pet. So I will try to put a getter method on all of them, and then let's say on those getter methods I wish to perform some more actions also. So there are chances of getting null pointer exception. I hope you agree with me that here these are the chances. So what we will do is we will try to distinguish them with the help of our single table inheritance, and here we will add something like this category column. So here you may see that okay, we need to provide this in the input, but that is not the case. I will show you in the code how we are going to perform this. So here we will say that in the category part, if it is domestic, so we will only take care or we will only discuss about the date of birth thing, and if it is a wild category, then we will only talk about the place of the birth. Other things will remain common here. Yeah. So you see that in single table inheritance, why we call it a single table? Because we are going to have one table only for this. irrespective of number of the child classes. And here with the help of this some category column, we will try to distinguish those particular things. Yeah. One disadvantage of this particular kind of technique is that you are going to have so many null values in your table. Since here only one factor was different between the two child classes, so you will see null and null here. In many of the scenarios, let's say if you are taking a banking application and then you consider something like a savings account, current account, so there can be even much more null values also, but this is the case. Now before we move on with the coding part, let's try to discuss few more small things here. So here we will say that till now we have discussed these many primary key generation techniques. So the number one was that you were directly taking it from the user only. So it was not any generation as such, but it was hard coded. Then we saw the auto strategy, identity strategy, sequence. I mean sequence we didn't discuss as such because I said it is not generally go with the MySQL. Then we discussed the UUID strategy also and the composite primary key. You can watch the particular video very easily with the help of our this particular Hibernate playlist. And then there is something like table strategy also, which we haven't discussed so far, but when we are going to cover one of the inheritance type, at that time we will discuss the table strategy. But my point is that in the next upcoming videos, by default each and every time we will go with the identity strategy, and that is just my choice. If you say no, I wish to go with the auto or the UUI strategy, that is again your choice. Or if you say composite primary key, again that is your choice. But I'll go with the identity strategies in all of the upcoming demos here, because in detail we have already covered. So there is no fun of keep on, comparing or keep on trying the things again and again. Then the next one is coming to the mapping part. So in the mapping also we have detailed videos on each of these mappings. So we saw one-to-one mapping, one-to-many, many-to-one, many-to-many mapping also. And in order to keep the things simple so that we can focus on particular part only, we will go with the one-to-one mapping always by default, until unless I need to show you some explicit scenario. And then the third one is the fetching technique. So I mentioned you there is the eager loading also, there is lazy loading also, and there is advantage and disadvantage of both of them. So accordingly you can decide which loading you wish to go. Since I will go with the one-to-one mapping, and in one-to-one by default it is eager loading, so I would also like to go with the eager loading only in all my upcoming videos. If you wish, what you can simply do is you download the demo and you enhance it as per your requirement and you see what are the changes required. So this is something which I wish to tell you in advance here. Now let's move on to the coding part. So now we are in our Eclipse IDE, and here you can see that I have already started this demo 13. Again what I have done is I have copied the things from the previous many-to-many demo, or not basically many-to-many but one-to-one mapping demo. From there I have copied, and wherever required I'll try to show you what are the changes. Otherwise you will see most of the things are already there. So this time let me do something different, that instead of entity let me start with the DTO. So in the DTO I'm having owner DTO here. So owner DTO is again same as it is, and here since it is one-to-one mapping, so I'm providing a pet DTO here. Then this is my pet DTO, something like this. I'm having the string, the gender, the pet type, and since it was a bi-directional mapping here by default, so I'm mentioning the owner DTO also, yeah, because you may want to fetch by the pet ID, so hence I'm providing this. Otherwise there is nothing as such. But you see again I'm not having any date of birth or place of birth here. So for this I have made something like DomesticPet DTO, where I'm extending the pet DTO class and I'm having only the local date as birth date. And here I'm having something like WildPet DTO. So again I'm extending the pet DTO class and I'm having the birthplace here, which is a string here. So this is the particular required change. So in the terms of classes you see this is the simple change, yeah. And accordingly I have updated the toString methods and all these things. So this was one particular part. Now let's go to entity. Now in entity also, first of all we'll go to the owner. So in the owner there is no big change as such. Everything is same which you have already seen in one-to-one mapping video. So the same one-to-one mapping, same kinds of parameters are there. The only thing is I'm using the default eager loading. So you won't see any lazy loading here. Then the same join column I'm having with the help of this pet ID, because here I need to add the extra required column. Then I'll go to this particular pet table. So in the pet table also you see same entity, same table, same this generated value, all other things, name is there, gender is there, type is there, owner is there, so that we can have bidirectional mapping also in this particular part. And since, as I mentioned you, that here it is going to be some kind of inheritance, so again in the entity also we have this domestic pet. As of now I haven't added any annotations on this, so only the column annotation is available here, and I'm extending the pet in this one. Then I'm having this wild pet, again no extra annotation, just the column one, and I'm having this particular pet here. So these are the things which I have provided here. Now the thing is, let's start trying to implement the inheritance technique here, because just by saying extends pet, you can't get your inheritance part here. Yeah, so although in terms of Java you will say that okay, inheritance has been implemented, but in terms of Hibernate, in terms of JPA, the inheritance is not yet implemented. We need to add few more annotations for this. Yeah, now for this one, the first annotation is going to be @inheritance, and that you need to mention on your parent class, that is the pet class. So here we will say inheritance. So yeah, so it is going to look something like this, inheritance. And if you wish to see, so again this is coming from JPA, that is Jakarta persistence here. So let's go within this. So here in the inheritance you see that by default there is only just one single parameter, that is strategy, and this strategy is of data type inheritance type. Then inheritance, as I mentioned, is just going to be of three types: single table, which we are going to discuss in this particular video; joined, the second video which is going to come next week; and then table per class, which is going to come next to next week. So each and every we will focus. Today's focus is just single table. The reason why we started with this, because this is going to be your default strategy. So even if you want to mention anything in the strategy, by default it is going to be single table, and hence we don't need to provide any brackets here and then we need to provide the value here, because again by default it is going to be your single strategy as such. So this is something we have added up here. Now the next thing you will see is that here we are not providing anywhere category column. So the one which I shown you in the deck, so that category column is not available here. The reason is because that column we are not going to enter manually every time. It is going to be provided by the Hibernate or JPA. Now how? So that will look something like this. So here we will say discriminator column. So I'll write like this, and here we are having option as discriminator column, and again it is from Jakarta persistence. So we will write this particular thing as discriminator column. Let's again see what is the value there, and let me close this extra one and this extra also. So in the discriminator column, they say that here the first option is that you are having the name. So the name of the column which you want. Now if you won't give any name, by default the name is going to be D type, and it is going to be in capital letters like this. It can be any string. But if you remember from our deck, what I was writing there was the category. So here I wish to write the same thing as category. So let me just try to write here, and what I'll do is that I'll go here and I'll say name, and I will say category here. Again the reason is why I'm not changing, because I'm already having the script ready with me. So I wish to execute the same script, and hence I wish to go with the same exact value without any spelling mistake. It is your choice, whatever the name you wish to go for. If you won't write any name, it will take it as D type, and then you need to refer this one. Then the next one is the discriminator type here, which says that within this column what kind of value you are going to have. So in this D type column, that is the extra column or the category column which you have created, what kind of data type you are going to have, because generally you see you mention data type like this. So you say it is a string, it's a gender, it's a enum or something like this. But here how you will provide the data type, so that you can do with the help of this discriminator type. Let's again see the options. So here it can be of string type, it can be a big string also, it can be a character also, and it can be the integer also. something like 1, 2 or 3, or can be a single character. And for this also the default one is string. So we will go for this string only, and hence we don't need to make any particular change here. I'll tell you that okay how we will be providing the value, but the default one is string in this. The next is column definition, so we don't need anything as such for this, and the default length is going to be 31. So here you say that if you are choosing it as string based discriminator type, so only for this one, so at that time the length is going to be 31. If you say no, I want to change the data type of this particular column as something like integer or a character, so for character you just need a single length only, the length is 1. For the integer also you don't need big length. So only for the strings the maximum length which is by default is 31. If you say no, I want to provide a very big value, then again you can increase the length value also. Yeah, but the point is it is just a discriminator column, so why would you go with a very big name? So this is the thing which we have added here. So this part is done, and hence now we don't need to provide anything extra. So in the parent class these are the things which you need to do, that is inheritance annotation and the discriminator column annotation, and this particular part here. Now let's go with the next part, that is domestic pet here, that is your child class. Now in the child class what you need to do? So in the child class the number one thing is you need to say extends pet, and the number two thing which you just need to provide here is that is add the rate, and here it is going to be discriminator value, this particular thing. So in the parent it was column, and here it is the value in this particular one. Let's again try to click. So for this we say there is only one particular part, it is value. Since it is only one parameter, default value is value only, so we don't need to write the name. Now this means that if the extra column is category, so if that extra column is category, now you are saying that in that particular category column it can be any string you can enter. So which string would you like to enter for a domestic pet? So I say that if it is a domestic pet, then mention there domestic, something like this. So mention domestic word there, so this way it will be automatically added. So the moment you are going to save domestic pet there, it will add domestic word there. If you say a wild pet, it will add the wild word accordingly. If you say no, I don't want it to be something like a string, I want it to be a character, then you can mention just a simple D here. If you say no, I don't even want to mention this, I want to mention it as an integer, so you can mention 1 here. Yeah, obviously that 1 again needs to be in double inverted commas because it's a value here. So this way you can provide the values. In our case we will go with the word domestic. Okay, I guess unwantedly I have given unwanted control Z, so I need to enter the value again as domestic. So this domestic we are providing, and that's the only annotation which you need to add here, nothing extra. Yeah, and again what I can do is I will just copy this, I'll go to the wild pet, and here also I will provide the same. So the moment you wish to add a wild pet, then you need to give wild here, and this is your choice, capital letter, small letter. This is the data which will be exactly entered in your database. So same way if you have any number of child class, you can decide which value you wish to add. Now one more thing which needs to be taken care for this part is that you see for these things, ID is, since it's a primary key, so it is by default non-null. Name we are saying nullable false, gender also nullable false, type also nullable false. But this time you can't say that this birth date is going to be nullable false. Why? Because only for domestic pet it is going to be available, not for the wild pet, and hence you can't make it as non-null. Yeah, you need to make it as a nullable value. Same way wild pet also you need to make it as a nullable value, because it is trying to consider that nullable thing as per the complete pet table, not the specific wild pet or the domestic pet. So all these values needs to be nullable. Whatever the extra things, extra columns you are adding here, they are going to be nullable here, so that they can have the null value for the other data type. So this is a particular required change which you need to add here. Now beside this, one more extra thing, that here you will say that okay, we have added the entity. Do we need to add this annotation here also? The answer is yes. So here also you need to add this annotation entity, something which I was about to forget. So this entity is again required here. So this is required on the parent also as well as the child also. Then do we need to provide this something as table? The answer is no. Because generally why do we provide the table annotation? So that we can change the name of the table, or we can provide a custom name. Since domestic pet is not going to be a separate table, wild pet is not going to be a separate table in our case, so we don't need @ table annotation. Only @ entity will do the required job. So these are the required annotations which you need to have. Nothing in the owner as such, well, remove it. In the pet, only two annotations will do the job, these two. In the child classes, again these two annotations will do your job. And this is something which you need to take care, that all of them should be nullable in nature. Now the next thing is that we need to go to this particular config, and here the thing is, if you remember, the moment we were learning about the mappings, so we said you need to add this particular thing also. So now since you are adding the child classes also, so every child you need to add here, otherwise you won't see the required values or the required changes. So here also these are the changes needed, so that it can start taking all those extra annotated classes. So you will say domestic pet, and here you also need to add the wild pet. So this is a particular change in your this part. Okay, I don't want to write it like this, so let me just say Ctrl Z. Yeah, and this looks good. So now in this configuration we are saying we are having owner class, we are having pet, we are having domestic pet, and we are having the wild pet. So all the four classes we have configured. In case if you miss this, like while I was preparing the demos, I missed this, and believe me, I spent a lot of time in order to resolve the issue. I mean, it happens sometimes that you miss the things. So this is a mistake which I did in this particular part. So these are the important things, and now let's see some of the other things. So enums are going to remain same as such, no change. Exception is same, no change. Yeah, and let me just close this particular part also, this also, and let's directly go to this particular one demo here. And as always, let's start with all the cases one by one, and I'll go to this input util also. So you see only 5 cases are there. Again, these are very simple ones, and in this video we don't have any big changes in the repository or service layer. You will see everything is going to look same only. So the first one is add new owner. So let's see what we need to do here. So for add new owner, you will say we will add pet also. So here you will accept the owner details, which are again going to remain same only. You will accept the pet details. So for pet details, there is a small change in this part. That is that what I'm doing, that when I'm accepting the pet details, I'm saying enter the name. So name is single. Then I'm saying that tell me whether you wish to add a domestic pet or the wild pet. So with the help of this single letter, I will decide whether it's a domestic or a wild pet. If it's a wild pet, then I will take the place of birth. And if it is a domestic pet, then I will accept the date of birth. So this way I'm taking it from the user also. And accordingly the respective DTO I wish to create here, whether it's a wild pet or a domestic pet DTO. So that particular pet DTO I'm trying to create in this particular part. Then once it is done, so I'm just setting it here, and then we are just going there to save the owner. So let's go there. So here we are, and before saving we need to convert it to the entity. So let's go there. So this owner part is again looking same. So we are having a pet and we are just converting, then we are just setting. So this looks same. As of now we are not mentioning whether it's a wild pet or a domestic pet. Now the moment you go in this particular method, that is to convert the pet DTO to entity. So here again the required changes comes. And here the changes that by default we are having name, gender and type here. Yeah. But the point is that if it is a domestic pet, we need to save the date of birth. And if it is something like a wild pet, we need to save the wild pet. So how to do this? So for this, what I'll do is that I'll say that initially this pet is nothing but your null in nature. So this is the one that initially it is going to be null. Now I will say that if your this particular pet DTO is something like an instance of, So I'm not sure whether you know about this or not, but you can tell me. Or it is a very simple thing in Java which comes in default Java only, core Java. You can learn about instance of, and accordingly you can decide. So we will say that if it is something like your domestic pet DTO, which looks something like this, and here we can rename the particular variable also in this particular line itself. So here we will say if it is your domestic pet, then it is going to look something like this, domestic pet. And let me just try to import the required thing here. So what we are saying, that here you are going to get the complete pet DTO object. Then we are saying that if it belongs to the domestic pet DTO, it means at the time of creation, if it was created with the help of domestic pet DTO, then go in this particular one. And if that is the case, then what we will do is we will again make it something like a that particular same. So here we will say that is new of domestic pet. So that also instance we will make it something like this, and domestic pet. So this one will look up something like this. Again, let me say import. So I'm trying to import from this one. And in case if it is not the domestic pet, but if it is something like your, let's say, the wild pet, so let's do that also. So we say if it is a wild pet, which is again looking something like this. So here also I will write as wild pet DTO. So if it is that the case, then you need to create the instance of your wild pet. So the respective instance we are creating here. So this way we have done this particular part. So this is done. And in case if it is not one of them, so obviously there are very few chances that the answer is going to go wrong, but still as a good person we should throw the required exception. So we will throw here some illegal argument exception, that is we will try to say here illegal, and let's say illegal argument exception, something like this. And within this, let's try to provide some better value. So here we will say unsupported pet, and then we will say instance. So like this we will try to provide the value here, unsupported pet instance, and here also we will try to give this particular as pet DTO dot get class. So here this is the one, so get class. So it is going to look something like this, and let's say Control Shift F. So I guess now it looks fine. I just need to provide a semicolon here. So now this one looks great to me, that this is the thing. So if it is domestic, then make a domestic pet instance. If it is wild, make a wild pet instance. And if it is anything else, throw the exception there only. First you decide this, then only you set the values. Now the thing is that if it is a domestic pet, then in that particular case what we need to do is we need to set this particular value. So let's say pet dot, and then we need to set, what we need to set is birth date. So here let's try to set this particular birth date. And for this again what I can do is I can try to take the value from this, and hence this value will be useful to me. So I will say here get birth date. So this one will look something like this to me, but this is giving me the error. Can you guess why I'm getting the error? I mean obviously I created the setter method, but still I'm getting the error. You can tell me in the comment section. Till then I will tell you the right answer. So the right answer why I'm getting this error is because this method was created in the child class. So the parent is unaware about this, that there exists something like this. So parent doesn't know. So what I need to do is that for the temporary moment, I need to typecast this. So for the temporary purpose, I need to typecast this pet to the domestic pet, and that I can do something like this. So this is the way you do the explicit typecasting. Yeah. And again, since it is not looking nice, so here we need to provide these particular brackets so that now it looks better to us. So what we are doing, we are setting the birth date, we are setting it into the pet. Yeah, but since this method is not available with the parent pet, so we have temporarily typecasted it to the domestic pet. So this is something which we are again doing here, and something similar we will do for this one also. So let me just copy this part let me paste it here, and here it needs to be something like a WildPet for me, so that I have mentioned. And here instead of date I need to say place birth, and here I will say again something, let's say WildPet DTO, and here also I will just try to write something as place. So this is the particular change which I have done here. Okay, this is not place date, it should be birthplace. So let me say like this, and here also let me try to update this one as birthplace. So this way we have updated this particular method, and let me say Control Shift F. So now this looks, I guess, fine to you also, fine to me also. So first of all, we checked whether it's a domestic pet DTO or a wild pet DTO. Accordingly, we created the instance of that particular one. We set the required value. If it is anything else, we'll throw the exception that it is not supported, and we can get the type what we were getting in the input by the help of this class. All other values are common, so we are just setting them here. Yeah, and then we don't need to add any other changes. So that was enough for this. Yeah. Now once it is done, we'll again go back here and we will just save the owner, and believe me or not, the method looks as it is like the previous one. Simple. The next part is something will go on again top here. It is fetch owner details. So for this second part, we just need the owner ID. So we are getting this particular one. Again we are going here. So we are saying find owner. So this term, it is going to look like this. And remember, this is eager loading by default. Since it is eager loading, we are getting the pet details also parallelly. So we will come here. If it is null, we'll throw the exception. If it is non-null, then we will again go in this particular part and convert the DTO to entity here. So let's go there. So here we are going. Yeah, and here also what we are doing the conversion, and this time pet entity we need to convert to DTO but without owner. So again the similar changes we need to do in this particular part also, that we need to cover the required wild pet DTO, or we need to convert the required wild pet to wild pet DTO, domestic pet to domestic pet DTO. I won't spend the time again in doing that particular part. What I'll do is I'll just pause the video, I'll do the required changes, and I'll resume. So we are back guys, and you can see that again in the same way I have done the required changes. So first I'm checking whether this pet is instance of domestic pet or the wild pet. If it is something else, I'll throw the exception, and for the required one I'm converting it to the required part again in the same particular way also. So once it is again done, so we will return it back to the UI. Same way the third one is update the pet details of the owner. So here we just need the owner ID and the pet name. So only two details we need. Again we will go in this particular part, and here we don't need to worry about the data type of the pet, whether it's a wild or a domestic pet. We are just changing the name. So we will again go here, and for this, from this one only we will get the eager loading. So once it is done, we are going to update these particular pet details. So again this method is going to look same for us. The next one is going to be your delete owner details. So it is again the same way. We will go in this particular part, we will find the owner. If it is not there, we'll throw the exception. If it is there, we will delete owner, and also it is going to delete your pet also. Again the same thing. Yeah, so whether it's a domestic pet or whether it's a wild pet, it will be deleted. And the last but not the least, we need to fetch by the pet details. So for this what we will do is we will just take the pet ID, and for this I guess we need to go to this particular pet service IMPL. So we will find the pet. For that also there is no big deal. So we'll go to this one. Here we will directly get the pet instance as it is. So directly we will be getting this particular one. We don't know as of now whether it's a domestic or a wild, and once we will get that particular one, what we will do is we'll go there and we will convert the required pet to the required pet DTO on the same basis. And here this time we need to set the owner also. So again this is something we need to do here. So I guess all other changes were very simple. So in this particular part, the important changes were in your entity class, in the config, and then there were some small changes like this in your mapper class, and that is again if you wish to write or not. Yeah, so these were the main things, and with this we are completing the first part of this video where we were providing the required changes, and now we just need to execute the code. But before this, we'll go to this src main resources, we'll select this data.sql. here you see what are the changes. So now your tables are going to look like this. So first of all, we need to enter the data in the pet table, something like this. And if it is a domestic pet, so if you are providing the data manually here with the help of queries, then you need to obviously provide the domestic or wild. If it is domestic, then we just need to save the date of birth, and in case if it is wild, then we just need to save the place of birth. So this way I have provided all these things, and the owner table looks same. So we'll directly go to this one. Same values are being provided here. So what I'll do is that I'll select all these and I'll execute. And the moment I'll execute, let's see how it is going to look like. So what is the issue here? So it says that it doesn't exist because I guess we forgot to execute the code. So let's do the same. So we'll go to this demo here, we'll execute this, and let's again go to this particular part. So you see the things are there. So we have one owner table and then one particular pet table. The category column got created automatically with the data type as a string, and the value is 31, and this is not null in nature. And then rest of the things are there. So again, let's go in this particular part, let's refresh the same. So we have this as owner table, we have it as pet table, and again let's try to execute all these queries. So I'm executing the queries here. So let's again check the values. So here we are in the owner table, and you can see that we are having all the required values. So here we are having owners from 1 to 72. Then let's go to the pet table. So here we are in this one, and some of you may say that okay, the size looks small. So let me big, I can't increase the size of the table here, guys. So here it is going to look like this. The category, so by default, yeah, this is just a view. So don't say why this category column is coming in the starting. This is your choice, how you would like to see it. And for this domestic, place of birth is null in nature, and for the wild, the date is null in nature, and then again we have all these values. So now let's try to provide the things. So what I'll do is I'll quickly add the values here, or what I can do is that this time, believe me, each and everything is going to look fine here. So this time let me give this task to you to check whether everything is looking fine or not. If everything is looking fine, if you are able to execute the code after this, and please don't make any change directly. First execute the same code as it is. Once it is working, then you can try the changes on your own. Yeah, and you can tell me in the comment section whether it is working or not. That way we can make our video little small here this time. And I guess that was it with the first kind of inheritance. And if you like the video, please again like the video, share the video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, ask them also to subscribe the channel, watch the video, and please comment something in the comment section. The comment section is almost empty even after 1000 subscribers, so it doesn't looks nice. So please do comment something. Thanks everyone.